Hey guys, ignore the fact that I absolutely need to shave my head. I've been feeling a bit under the weather the past couple days and just been swamped with work and school and all of that. Today I want to make a little bit of a different video for you. I wanted to talk about how in the last 3 weeks or so, have went through three different GPUs at various price points. And I wanted to talk about the benchmarks as I benchmarked all of them, and we can kind of look at this data and one see how terrible ultra settings are. You should never ever use ultra settings in fucking anything that you play. They're just terribly optimized, and really there's almost no visual degradation in ultra to high, but you'll usually save a bajillion frames. So that's rule number one. Don't use ultra settings. But I wanted to go ahead and share this with you guys just because I found it interesting. I went from a 2070 Super, which came out in like 2018, 2019, right around there, to a 2080 Ti because I actually got one for just $50 more than what I was going to sell the 2070 Super for. So it was like a $50 upgrade. And I used the 2080 Ti for a little bit, but it was not the. I just figured, why not just go all out? And then now I have a 3080 Ti. And so I benchmarked various games that I kind of struggled with before, and let's just take a look at it and we can talk about it. I just find this shit interesting. It's a little bit of a different video. No, not really ranting or anything, but if we take a look here at the old notepad, we could see the first one was everything on Ultra, DLSS on quality. All of these, if they have DLSS, it's going to be on quality. There's no reason to not run DLSS on quality. There is, like I said, no visual degradation that I can see. All of these benchmarks are at 1440p, 144 hertz, and I can't see any visual degradation by just turning DLSS on quality. So you should always do that. It's going to give you a big bump in performance for literally no change in visuals. But this is all ultra, DLSS on quality, and all ray tracing maxed out. And any settings that can go up to Psycho are on Psycho. So you could see the 2070 Super, I mean, it was about to combust. It was about to get like just light on fire, man. The poor thing was working its ass off, and in the benchmark, it hit 34 frames per second. So 30 FPS. If you are coming from console or something like that, you could play Ultra and get 30 FPS on a $200 to $300 card. That is such good value. The 2070 Super is fantastic value right now. Go on eBay and they're 200 to 300 bucks, like I said. Very, very good value. If you're looking for just like an entry level card, it's going to be similar to like a 3060, but 3060s, they're at like 400 bucks. They're almost double the price. So 2070 Super, kind of a sleeper hit. And remember, this is all on Ultra with DLSS. I played through the entirety of Cyberpunk twice with optimized settings, using Digital Foundry's optimized settings, which is a variation of high and low and stuff like that, and DLSS on quality. And I was sitting at over 60 FPS like the entire time I was playing it. So that's just showing you, like, you can basically double your frame rate in all of these games if you just fiddle with some settings. But 34, not bad. 2080 Ti coming in at about a 20% increase, which is very notable. Because it was only, like I said, like it's like $50-ish more. You can get these from $300 to $400 on eBay. And so for just a little bit more, you can get a 20% increase, which is fantastic, man. And the 2080 Ti will run the game at around 80 FPS if you're, using optimized settings, which is awesome. And then we have the 3080 Ti, which I paid $650 for. So to get the price points here, you have 200 to 300 bucks for a 2070 Super. Then you have 2080 Ti. This is 300 to 400 bucks. And then you have the 3080 Ti, which is double the price essentially. it's going to be 600 to 700. Typically low 700s is where they're going to sell like on eBay. I'm not using like Newegg prices, or because who the hell wants their GPU melting? Topical 4090 joke. But I'm not using Newegg and I'm not using Amazon, because if you were to look at these GPUs on there, they're ridiculously expensive. Like a 3080 Ti on Amazon is going to be like $1,200, and I got mine for $650. It's ridiculous. And mine is new. Still plastic on the fucking fans and shit. But anyway, so those are the price points. 2070 Super is like 200 to 300, 2080 Ti 300 to 400, and 3080 Ti got mine for 650. So almost double the price. Are you seeing double the performance? No, you're not, but you are seeing a 50% increase in performance, which is quite good. And this is with all the bells and whistles. So the fact that you can get over 60 FPS, at least in the benchmark, we'll talk about gameplay in a second, with DLSS on only quality and ray tracing and everything max out is crazy. You could easily get 100 plus FPS constant if you just use some optimized settings. So that is really great, but you kind of have to ask yourself, is it worth, is it really worth double? Especially at 1440. I mean, 4K, you're going to see a bigger discrepancy between these. Obviously, like 2070 Super is going to be on fire in 4K, I'm sure. But, like, most of us aren't playing 4K. Most of us are playing 1080p or 1440p. So, I mean, I don't really know if it's worth. It's up to you. For me, it's worth. But let's move on. So Cyberpunk actual gameplay. I went to Japantown. This is one of the hardest areas to run, and I just ran around. There's a lot of NPCs there. There's a whole lot of like atmospheric fog and neon lights and shit like that. When I was playing through Cyberpunk, this is the section that would always chug on the 2070 Super. And here's what I saw. So I saw 28 to 30 FPS average. So this is fucking abysmal, man. This is console level shit. Really rough. 2080 Ti, though. Pretty sizable increase at 37 average. So much better. And then 3080 Ti, though. Even a 3080 Ti in 1440p cannot maintain 60 in actual play scenarios, just running around in Japantown, can't maintain 60. What does this tell us? It tells us that Cyberpunk is fucking awfully optimized. There's no reason a 3080 Ti should be struggling like this. In case you're wondering about the rest of the specs on the PC, I suppose I should have said those. CPU's a Ryzen 7 3700X, overclocked to 4 megahertz. Gigahertz, megahertz, I don't remember. It's been fucking forever. I've had the CPU in for forever. You know what I'm talking about. I think it's gigahertz. Maybe it's not. Who knows? And RAM, just some standard 3200. And I have like 48 gigs of it. So pretty standard shit there. But yeah, so under 60 FPS. Cyberpunk is not well optimized, but like I said, you shouldn't be doing all ultra settings anyway. This is like a worst case scenario, and it's really just all ultra so that the GPU is doing, almost all of the work. But overall, pretty good performance out of, a $200 card with the Super and a $350 card with the 2080 Ti. Pretty good performance. Definitely, if you turn down those settings, you're going to have like I said, above 60 FPS experience. So that's really nice. But God of War was next. The 2070 Super. Like, this is a perfect example of a game that looks phenomenal and is just optimized fantastic. So everything on Ultra. This everything that can go on Ultra. Some of the settings only go to high, but some of them are Ultra. Some of them are Ultra Plus. Everything as high as it goes. DLSS on quality. 1440p. And the 2070 Super 72 FPS average, man. And this game looks fucking phenomenal on PC. It always looked good on console as well, don't get me wrong, but on PC it looks phenomenal. And for this, I went to the area that I experienced the most FPS drops in, which is Alfheim. Kind of went in the boat and was just paddling around Alfheim. Um, that's where when I played through the game on PC, it had the most performance drops. And as you can see, 72, fantastic. So the Super doing great, but God of War is just phenomenally optimized. There's nothing else I can really say about it. 2080 Ti bumps it up to 90, and then a much smaller jump here. Well, I guess it's 24 compared to 18, but for the price difference, it's not as big for sure. 114 average for the 3080 Ti. So honestly, this game just runs fantastic no matter like what GPU you're running. But I gotta say, I was surprised. 2070 Super putting in work for, like I said, a cheap ass card, man. I mean, this card you can get it for 200 to 250 very easily. Like new quality, and it's pumping out numbers, dude. Spiderman Remastered. Now, this is the funniest one. If you've seen Digital Foundry's video, then you probably know this is a very CPU limited game. GPU has very little to do with it. And all I was doing was swinging around the city. I made sure to swing low by the street because that's where you see the biggest performance dip. And of course, this is all ultra. DLSS is on quality. All ray tracing is cranked up to the max, and that's why the performance is so low here. Basically identical, like very negligible changes. 2070 Super at 52, 2080 Ti 54, 3080 Ti 54. The reason for that is, like I said, it's a CPU limited game, but the ray tracing is just very fucking demanding in this game. You could totally get much higher FPS if you turn down that ray tracing. That's really what's causing this game to just have these low of numbers. But in general, you're just going to see the performance drops when you're swinging through the city. That's, like I said, watch the Digital Foundry video if you're curious about that. But the ray tracing is crazy because it's essentially applying all of these realistic reflections to every fucking window on every skyscraper. And it's beautiful to look at when besides the 50 FPS, but it's beautiful to look at as you're swinging through and you're seeing everything reflected. You're seeing your character reflected. You're seeing the world reflected through all these windows. It's beautiful to see, but basically no difference in whatever fucking GPU you're throwing at this game. And then we get to the game that caused me to want to upgrade my GPU, Plague Tale Requiem. This was the game where I was trying to play and I was like, damn, even with shit turned all the way down, this game is running like dookie. And it caused me to just have to completely stop my playthrough and go, I'm getting a new GPU. So this is the game that kind of inspired it all. And you can see why looking at this. I mean, 48 FPS in the opening area, which is a beautiful forest. And to be fair, Plague Tale is, I would say, the best looking game I've ever seen. I mean, the faces and stuff aren't as good as, say, like a Red Dead Redemption 2 or a Last of Us 2, but the environments are by far the best I've ever seen. And like I said, I've played PS5 Last of Us 2. I've played all maxed out Red Dead 2 on PC. Like, these environments are stunning. If you have not actually had the chance to play Plague Tale Requiem, I mean, this game runs at 30 FPS on console. So think about that for a second. All maxed out. Well, actually, I don't even know what settings console uses, but it runs at 30 FPS. There's no performance mode or anything. That should tell you how fucking demanding this game is. So, honestly, when you consider that a PS5 is barely pushing 30, right? The fact that a 2070 Super, a $200 card, is getting 48 in the opening is really saying something. And in the first section of the game where there's a bajillion rats, this is a very CPU limited. So you'll barely see this number change, but 62 FPS, so above 60, barely for the rat section with the 2070 Super. Jump over the 2080 Ti, and like I said, you're not seeing a huge difference here from 62 to 66 for the rat section. But you are seeing from 48 to 53, which doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but it's actually pretty substantial. What is that? Maybe like a 15% increase. So not too shabby at all. But then we have the fucking powerhouse himself, the thing that's validating my purchase of this card. I got the upgrade of the card specifically for this fucking game. And this is why. So 70 FPS for the rat section. Like I said, you're not seeing a huge difference there, but 85 in the opening. And this is average, but it was constantly hitting upwards of 90 and 100 frames per second as well. So much, much better in just general play. And god damn, does this game look good. It looks absolutely phenomenal, man. Even on lower settings, this looks great. And of course, this is on DLSS on quality, but you could even bump these numbers up higher by just doing some optimized settings. And then also, this game, I don't know what they do, but they incorporate DLSS really well. Like, you can go down to performance for DLSS, and only then are you going to start to see visual degradation. So I don't know what witchcraft they use for their DLSS. Normally, I never go below balanced, but you can go down to performance in this game, and about each time you go down, you're getting about 10% increase in frame rate, is what I've seen at least. So on quality, you'll get 10% more than native, and then I think after that is balanced, you'll get another 10%, and then performance, you'll get another 10%. And then they have ultra performance, but that's not recommended unless you're playing in 8K. And you'll definitely see degradation there. So these numbers can definitely get pumped up more because DLSS looks phenomenal in the game. But very, very impressive. And this is really the first game where the 2070 Super is struggling. And you might say, well, Zach, what about fucking Cyberpunk? I mean, here's the thing. Cyberpunk is not, sure, it's beautiful if you have everything up, but you should not have everything up because it's just like Witcher. Like, they have settings and crazy ultra settings that realistically, there's very minor visual improvement going from, say, high to ultra or psycho or whatever. And you're losing so many frames. You'll lose 5-6 frames just from going from high to ultra, and you'll be squinting, an inch away from your monitor trying to even see a difference. So, in my opinion, Cyberpunk, sure, it's a bit rough, but if you use optimized settings, even a 2070 Super is running this thing 60 FPS, 1440p, and it's still looking damn good. And then Borderlands 3, this is a surprising game because it chugs on a 2070 Super. I mean, the average is 62, but this game is frequently dropping down to like 30s. This is a very tough game to run, which is kind of weird because if you look at it, it's like a little cartoony game, but surprisingly difficult to run, man. And we see here a 2070 Super, like I said, barely above 60. Of course, this is all ultra. The game does not have any DLSS either, so this is all just native. I have no idea why it doesn't have DLSS. Very weird, especially when they partnered with NVIDIA and like Borderlands 2 for PhysX and stuff, but whatever. Kind of a big L, which is why the performance is not as high as you would think because DLSS really does work wonders. But 62, I can tell you from experience though, it's going to drop below 60 for 1440p frequently. 2080 Ti sitting at 74, which is a big increase, like way bigger than I thought when you consider that, 2070 Super 200 to 300 and then 2080 Ti 300 to 400, but you can find, if you really take your time, you can get a 2080 Ti for 350, 340. My cousin just got one for 300. So if you are really, sniping some deals, you could get a fucking 2080 Ti for 300 bucks, which would be insane value. I'm almost freaking out. He's literally dying right now, so let's wrap up the video. I don't know what he's doing. 3080 Ti though, 95 FPS. I mean, this thing is just fucking obliterating it. Typically though, since it's a first-person shooter, something I'd like to play on mouse and keyboard, I'd prefer this to be up to 120, so I'm going to be dropping settings and stuff like that. So overall, what did we learn? We learned that for 200 to 300 bucks, you can get a 2070 Super, and it is still in 2022 going to do fantastic. And then we also learned that just for a little bit more, the 2080 Ti is still a solid card. I mean, 2080 Ti, you can get it for the same price as a 3060, and you're going to get better performance than a 3060. And a lot of the times people just see the numbers. They see, oh, that's 2000 series that came out in 2018. This is 3000 series. It's newer, it's shinier, it's prettier. It came out in 2020 or whatever. And I mean, these benchmarks show you that even in 2022, almost 2023, playing the hardest games to run on fucking PC, a 2070 Super or a 2080 Ti is fantastic. Is the 3080 Ti worth it? If you're like me and you really like high frame rates, because like I said, I have a 1440p 144 hertz monitor. I really like to be at minimum 80, 85 FPS if it's like a fucking demanding game, right? And then I like to be at 80 at least. 60, it's totally playable for most games. Not really for first person shooters for me. I can't really do 60 unless I'm on controller. Controller changes the game entirely. If I play on controller, I could tolerate 60 for sure. Even 50 on controller is not that bad. But if I'm playing M and K, I need higher frame rates. I need at least 80 for mouse and keyboard gameplay. So for me, I think the 3080 Ti, especially the price that I got it, $650 for a 3080 Ti. I mean, this is a card that is virtually identical to a 3090, which was top of the fucking line and is still the second best card on the market. Sure, we have the 4090 now, which is the king, but 3090 is still second on the market. And a 3080 Ti is the exact same card as a 3090. The only difference is the VRAM. 3090 has 24 gigs of VRAM, which nobody fucking needs for gaming. I mean, even in all these benchmarks, running things on ultra, fully maxed out, the highest VRAM usage I ever got was 8.1 gigs. So any 10 gigabyte, 11, 12 gigabyte VRAM card is completely fine and will do perfectly great in everything that is currently out for gaming. So realistically, 3080 Ti is second or third greatest card on the market, and for 650, that's a fantastic deal for sure. Even 700, I think, is a solid price for it. When you consider that typically you want to be spending about half of your total build cost on the GPU, puts it around a $1,400 build, which is going to be fantastic performance for $1,400. But anyway, I've ranted long enough. I just thought this was interesting. I thought I'd share it with you guys. My experience with 3 different GPUs over 3 weeks and kind of just testing a bunch of different games. And I think really what we found out is that I think the 2080 Ti is a sweet point right now. If you can pick up a 2080 Ti for 300 to 400 bucks, you're getting anywhere from a 20 to 35, 40% increase over a 2070 Super. And, sometimes you're not even paying that much more. Like, if you're like my cousin, you get a 2080 Ti for 300 bucks. That's a fucking steal of a deal, man, especially for the performance it's still putting out and is going to be putting out going forward. But yeah, that's about it for me. Bit of a different video. But thanks for stopping by. Have a fantastic rest of your day. See all of you in the next video. We're Super Bye bye.